I hesitate to say they'd be bad champions, but they'd be boring champions.
I think they'd be pretty bad champions.
They'd be boring champions. He will leave as, clearly not a legend, but he'll leave as, I think, a great United player. And the fans absolutely love him. Like, match-going fans adore him.
NordVPN. Cybersecurity built for every day.
Before we jump into this podcast, let's just have a first word from our sponsors, NordVPN, the fastest VPN in the world and an absolute essential travelling companion. You can use NordVPN on 10 devices with just one account, easily switching your virtual location to access apps and websites in other countries. But if you're out of the country, make sure that you've got NordVPN to be able to use your subscriptions and watch the live sport that you might miss. If you're at home, use it to see if you can save money with products that might be cheaper in another region. Go to nordvpn.com/Manchester to get 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. The link is also in the podcast description.
Hello and welcome to the Manchester is Red podcast. My name is Steven Railston, recording this episode on a Friday morning, and I'm joined by Tyrone Marshall, who has just had a haircut, so he must be feeling all right. Ty, how are you?
Yeah, top of the world, mate. Top of the world. I was just telling you, the barbers were using me as an example of an excellent taper yesterday. I thought they were going to take a photo and stick me on Instagram for a minute. I didn't realise I'm already big on Instagram, so I would have done them the world of good. I just noticed actually as well that we're basically dressed identically from the bottom half down, aren't we? Well, black jeans, black socks, pundit trainers.
I've been wanting to bring this up with you for a while, to be fair, because you do copy my fashion a bit. You've deliberately asked us a few times where I've got pieces from.
Yeah,
and then a few weeks later, you've turned up wearing that. You
famously set the trend for black jeans and black pundit trainers, didn't you? I've not seen anyone else wearing those, Stephen. Fair play to you.
I discovered on.
You Geordie Shore boys, always one step ahead of the curve.
I'm taking credit for the on. I've had an interesting week, Ty. I was at a 6 by Nico. Have you heard about that?
No.
It's like a fine dining experience. It's a chain, but there's 2 of them that they did. Yeah, don't know why. Probably because I was with my girlfriend. That's why. So I went out for a belated birthday meal. Definitely not my kind of thing. It's 10 very small balls of little bits and pieces. I had 2 slices of toast beforehand because I was thinking I'm going to be starving. Yeah. And then there was chips on the side of the menu. And Vicky said, should we get some chips then? Because, it'll fill you up. I went, yeah, okay, good idea. It was £10. It got brought down to the table. I thought, that surely can't be the chips. It was 3 singular chips for £10. And I couldn't help but when I was eating them thinking, this is working out on £3.30 a chip, yeah? Definitely not for me. I'm glad she enjoyed herself, but I will not be going back there.
They won't be sponsors anytime soon either.
No, I don't want sponsorship from them, if I'm honest. Yeah. Right, latest United news, then we'll look ahead to the Arsenal game on Sunday. We're both going down to the Emirates. The obvious place to start is Casemiro. That broke yesterday afternoon, didn't it? 33 years old. There was a conversation, and credit to him for even creating that conversation, about whether his deal should be extended. There was an option to extend it as well, because obviously it expires in June at the end of this season. But the decision has been announced that he's leaving the club. United have kind of clarified to us that decision was made well ahead of this announcement, and it was agreed with Casemiro that this is the correct way to do it, to prevent unnecessary speculation around the situation so he can focus on his performances. I thought that was very classy, the way it was announced, and probably befitting a player who's had quite a really good, magnificent career. What's your initial thoughts, Ty, on the announcement, really? Because we could probably all see this one coming.
Yeah, it's a bit of an unusual one to announce it so early. I mean, obviously he wants it out there so he can get another club, basically, seems to be the gist of it, and give a bit of clarity. But it's unusual. It's Casemiro that kind of wanted it out there rather than anyone else. Like we say, I think all parties have known this has been coming for a while. I mean, it's been coming since Jim Ratcliffe arrived, doesn't it? I mean, Sir Jim Ratcliffe used Casemiro as an example of United's kind of wasteful recruitment in Casemiro's first season, when everyone thought he was brilliant. And Ratcliffe, and it kind of sums up, he kind of sums up the last 4 years in that he's been absolutely brilliant at times as a player. What he's delivered off the pitch is phenomenal, but also, he wasn't worth 60 million rising to 70 million. He wasn't worth 350,000 £350,000 a week, depending if they're in the Champions League. That package is 120 to 130 million. and you were never going to get any return on that. There was never going to be any return on that in terms of like a future fee or anything like that.
He wasn't worth that fee objectively, but I think history will actually look back at his time pretty kindly, and we'll get into it now. But I mean, his first season at the club, you touched upon in pieces yesterday, such a fantastic first season. Third in the Premier League, obviously the Carabao Cup, he was wonderful in that, and really crucial because we're struggling at the start of the season. Defeats to Brentford and Brighton, and Casemiro came in and turned it around. There's definitely been some really bad performances along the way. Of course there has. Jamie Carragher leaves the football before the football leaves you. Getting hooked at halftime against Liverpool, and Toby Collier came on September 24. But there's been some positives as well. Yeah,
well, it's one of those, isn't it, where both things can be true. He wasn't worth the 120 to 130 million they've paid over 4 years for him, but he will leave as, clearly not a legend, but he'll leave as, I think, a great United player. And the fans absolutely love him. Like, match-going fans adore him because he gets it. Like, from the moment he walked through the door, he got it. Like, I mean, he rang John Murta the night of the Brentford 4-0 game to say, I still want to come. Like, they knew then they were onto a winner. And the standards he sets, like, he's first in the gym for extra prep work all the time still. His standards are unbelievable. The passion he has, like, someone told me last night, he massively cares about the club, and you can just see it. You think back to Saturday. I mean, he was the best player on the pitch in the Manchester derby on Saturday. But Mason Mount's third goal goes in. He jumps on the back of Carrick. He then runs onto the pitch and bear hugs with Martinez. And, like, this is a guy who's won it all, who's now coming to the end, and he's still celebrating like that. He has got United from the day he walked through the door, and I think that passion he shows, those standards he set, the fan base took to him immediately. And like you say, there's been some lows, and in reality, if he wasn't on 350 grand a week, he'd have gone 2 years ago. Like, he was going to go in the summer of 2024. You think back to the Crystal Palace performance when Carragher came out with that line, the FA Cup final when he was on the bench, like on the team sheets we got given.
He wasn't on the bench.
He was on the bench, and then on United's graphic on social media, he's not on the bench. And then the party that night, he's there, and then he leaves early, and he's flying out, and it's like, this is the end. And it would have been the end if he wasn't on 350 grand a week. But at the same time, he deserves credit, A, for coming back from that. And to be fair, he was badly exposed by Ten Hag's attempt from season 1 to season 2 to move things on in terms of style. Totally exposed that midfield, which we've talked about with Manu in the past, and it totally exposed Casemiro. And, he deserves credit. You think back to, he's behind Toby Collier, 18 months ago. So he deserves immense credit for fighting back. And at the end of the day, it's the right decision. It's the decision that's been coming. But he's going to leave as a first team player, isn't he? He's going to leave. He's obviously not going to start every game for the end of the season. Otherwise, he'd have an option triggered in his contract. But he's going to leave as someone who's in the starting 11. You pick United's best 11 at the moment. He's clearly in it. So, he deserves credit for that. And I think it's one of those, like I say, where both things can be true, which is not really what you want in a social media age, but he's clearly not been worth the money. But he's given United fans some great memories, and I think they all think really fondly of him.
I think we all thought he would leave, as you said, in that summer 2024, especially after the Crystal Palace performance. Incredibly humiliating, the Carragher coverage, but at the time, you couldn't really disagree with it, unfortunately. He was pretty bang on. Casemiro had been really bad for a while, and then a few months later into the new season, as I mentioned, I think it's perhaps an even lower point of his career to be substituted at halftime for Collier. And then Ten Hag came out after the game and confirmed that it wasn't fitness related, that it was tactical. He used the word tactical. So that was further humiliation. It's kind of renaissance probably started with Ruud van Nistelrooy, didn't it? In terms of the player we've seen now is kind of last few chapters at United. Because Van Nistelrooy put an arm around him, made him feel important again, said he was a senior player and said he relied on him in his few games in charge. But then when Amram came in, he fell down the pecking order again and he wasn't playing. So there's been peaks and troughs, and fair play to him because he hasn't sulked. He's got his head down and he's found a way back into the team. Even in January last year, 2025, if you look at it in the squads that were around that time, he wasn't playing. He wasn't starting games under Amram. Collier was ahead of him. I think around that time, United won against Fulham at Craven Cottage. Obviously, Collier had played in that game as well. And yet, Casemiro's performances in Europa League cemented his kind of place back in that team. The Europa League suited him a lot, didn't it, last season? Definitely. Because the pace of the competition, the continental opposition really suited him at this stage of his career. And as I said in the opening a little bit there, credit to him because fans have started to talk about giving him a new deal. And I think he deserves huge credit because it was nailed on to let him go. But the fact that even people were starting to murmur about it and talk a little bit about it says a lot about him and says a lot about kind of what he did to get back into the team and the quality that he's shown.
Yeah, it does. I think most people, and the reaction last night were it's kind of the right time. But like you say, you look at his performance on Saturday and you think he could still do a job somewhere. He's probably going to go to Saudi Arabia, and he's 34 next month, but he could still do a job somewhere in Europe. He could probably do a job in a Champions League team.
There are jobs in Europe. Like
there are jobs in Europe.
Could be a painter or a joiner.
I mean, in like a top 5 league somewhere. Yeah. Okay, smart ass. He could do a job at a top 5 league somewhere and Champions League, Europa League team. Like you look at that performance on Saturday, nothing's any doubt about it. This season has suited him in that United. It feels like United are playing once a month this season. That suits him. They're going to play 40 games. If they were playing 60, you'd have to use him a lot more sparingly. I don't think there's any doubt that his fitness is probably not what it once was. But all the stuff we've talked about and the stuff that you mentioned a lot just then is why I think he's one of the most fascinating United players of recent times, really, because he's played 146 games now. He's going to leave playing 160. Not many players who have played what in reality is a pretty short, a pretty small number of games compared to some players at this club who might be talked about in the same breath as him. But there's players who have played way more games than that for United and had far less interesting careers here. The scale of the highs and the lows are incredible, really. And I put it in a piece on Monday and written another one that's coming out today, kind of looking back at his United career. And always think, that first season was amazing, wasn't it? And he set the standards that season unbelievably. And I remember speaking to another player who said, who just talked about his leadership, and it was like he doesn't come in and put his medals on the table I've won all this. There's no mention of it, but he's just got an aura, and he's not a tub thumping, chest beating leader, but when he talks, you listen. And they were, he never shirked a challenge. He defended his teammates on the pitch, and I think he brought a real unity. I remember Ten Hag saying that summer he wanted players with character and personality, which is why he signed Martinez as well. And you think of Martinez and Casemiro, they've both got character and personality. You think back to the League Cup final. I remember when he scored the goal, didn't he, and celebrated wildly. And then there's a moment before half-time when they were 2-0 up, and he shepherded a ball out in front of the United fans for a goal kick just before half-time. And he turned to the United fans and he was waving his arms frantically. I was like, this is a League Cup final. The guy's won 5 Champions League titles and all there is to win. And it still meant as much to him as if it was his first Champions League title. And that's, that's the standards. B, that's why the fans loved him. I just think he's had a really interesting United career.
Yeah, very good point. But having said all that, and obviously I've given him a lot of praise there for the resilience that he's shown and coming through the adversity, I've still written all season and since the start of the season that he should be let go.
Yeah.
It was 100% the correct decision. Yeah. I said a couple of months ago, his focus needed to be on getting United back in the Champions League, bowing out on a high, and that would be a fitting way to go out. So in terms of what it means now going forward, it's obviously going to have an impact because we're going to strengthen the midfield regardless in the summer. Obviously this was anticipated, but it now kind of brings it into prominence again, and then we'll start talking about it a bit more because they really need to strengthen that part of the squad. Potentially going to need 2 midfielders now. You even said, didn't you, a few weeks ago, Frey? I disagreed with that, but go crazy with your midfielders, have as many as you want. In terms of the names, nothing's really shifted too much. It's the same names that they've been tracking. Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson, Carlos Baleba, they're all on the kind of a short list there of interest. And I'll be honest, I'll kind of reiterate my point. If you've tuned into this podcast, you'll already know how I kind of feel about this, how I feel. None of those players really do it for me. None of them are really screaming out and I'm thinking, yeah, that's going to be a really good signing for the midfield. How are you feeling in terms of potential Casemiro replacements?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Wharton is a really interesting, quirky player. I don't know how easily he fits in. Some of the stuff he does is so unique as a player. The way he takes the ball, some of his passes, but obviously the off the ball work has got to be there as well. If you're looking at a holding midfielder. If United are eventually going to play a fourth, it's 4-2-3-1 at the moment. You kind of got two there. If it becomes more of a 4-3-3 and you're pushing Menu a bit further up, you need, like an elite number 6.
There's been a shift, hasn't there, in the Premier League? Sorry, Ty. Like, for example, Elliot Anderson and Adam Wharton, very similar profiles very good passers, but not necessarily players of Casemiro's skill set who would break up play, intercept, love the defensive side of the game. And it's become quite trendy for these number 6s to be brilliant passers, but not necessarily really, really good defensively.
Yeah, well, I suppose maybe the game's moving away from that, because you look at Ugarte, who I think has probably got no real future at United beyond this summer. Like, there's
jobs in Europe though for Ugarte.
There's jobs in Europe for him, definitely. He's an old school defensive midfielder, really. Like, I think he's probably good at reading the game, getting himself in the right positions, but he gets on the ball and then
he loses the ball.
He loses the ball. There's no ball progression there. And then Anderson and Wharton are players. I mean, I can't remember what game it was now, but Anderson produced an assist earlier this season for Forest from a deep position where you were like, oh, that is spectacular. And Wharton's the same. The way Wharton manoeuvres the ball is amazing to watch. So they're really interesting players. But yeah, it does feel like the game has kind of moved away to players like that. And it is it's. I mean, this is a totally different subject, but I don't think you get many English players like that either, because Declan Rice is a great example. England needed Declan Rice to be a proper number 4, that's the thing. The England national team are missing, like a proper holding midfielder. But Declan Rice got a whiff of scoring goals and then wanted to be. It's like the Roy of the Rovers complex, isn't it? You see it with Gerrard. No one wants to be an English holding midfielder because it's not fashionable. They all want to be Roy of the Rovers. So now, Gerrard was a bit like that. Now Declan Rice is like that. It's like, well, I could be a number 4, but did you see those free kicks scored against Real Madrid? I just want to do that, actually. And now, we'll play Declan Rice as a number 8. And the holding midfielders that come in that do really well. I mean, Zubimendi started pushing forward a bit more, but they tend to be Spanish players or foreign players, don't they? Where it's a bit more accepted that it's a big part of the game. It seems to be an English thing where it's like, well, I don't just want to be a holding midfielder, which is why maybe Anderson and Wharton do.
There's a good holding midfielder that's just rocked up the Carrington. He's a bit old now, though. He's 44.
yeah. Well, you don't get, but he's probably the same category as an Anderson, isn't he?
To a lesser extent. There's definitely similarities there, but Carrick could still
he's a controller,
the defensive
work,
I
think they're controlling players. I mean, I like more really. Because I'm not in charge of recruitment, isn't it?
Yeah,
I like Anderson's all-round skill set, and I think he's really kicked on, and obviously he's going to get experience in the World Cup this summer. I think maybe he'd be...
Maybe my kind of opinion is just from watching him so much in Newcastle and each week and knowing the player who he was. He's a completely different player now, a completely different skill set, and he has improved vastly at Nottingham Forest. And likely he's going to be starting for England this summer because Thomas Tuchel clearly rates him a lot and likes him in that midfield. I think he's 21 years old, and there's question marks over the last few months about his form for Nottingham Forest. And if you're struggling in Nottingham Forest, when the scrutiny's really burning brightly at United, how are you going to fare? And Baleba this season, he's been very disappointing.
His head was turned, I think, Baleba when it happened in the summer. I mean, the thing is, you're looking at those 3 players, and I'm saying there's not an obvious candidate, but any of those 3 players is probably going to cost close to 100 million. So you'd like them to be an obvious.
That's why you need to get
candidate.
You need to get it right, because you can't spend 100 million on a player who in that position, which is so important, and not get it right. I know it sounds so obvious, but it's true, isn't it? They've really got to get the saying right.
You have got to get it right, and you need to be in. They need Champions League football financially. I mean, the Money League report yesterday showed the impact of that, and they're going to be outside the top 10 next year. I would imagine. So if they miss out on Champions League again, it's a major blow. But at least, the midfield, when I said they needed 3 midfielders, a month ago, you looked at all 4 of those midfielders. If we're talking Casemiro, Ugarte, Meno and Fernandes, and you thought all 4 of them have serious questions over their future. Now it's like, well, Menu looks set again for the long term. Fernandes maybe sees enough the rest of this season to stay.
Another rebuild for Fernandes to be involved with.
But this is the thing with Fernandes. You could not blame him. That's what I've always said now. It's kind of up to him what happens. If they miss out on the Champions League and he gets to the summer and he just goes, look, I've had enough. I feel like United owe it to him just to go, sorry about that. Fair enough.
I'm not sure he will. Judging by, obviously, spoke to him in October ahead of his fringe of appearance. Yeah, it was fringe of appearance. And he said, look, I'll stay here as long as I'm wanted.
Yeah.
Which I do kind of feel that with him. He's clearly very settled with his family. He's got two young children, doesn't he? And he loves the area. And his wife had a role in this decision to stay in the summer. We joke when we spoke to him because he spoke about Cristiano Ronaldo. I said, well, I think your wife's opinion's slightly more important, isn't it? He said, yeah, just a little bit than Ronaldo's. In terms of the transfer state of play for this month then, Ty, incomings are very unlikely because United are kind of prioritising long-term targets and they're not going to pop up in this window. So, again, just stating the obvious, we're looking ahead this summer and that's where the bulk of their business is going to be because that's the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And this window has been so, just quiet, hasn't it?
Sorry, I didn't give you much to latch onto there.
No, I wasn't sure. I didn't realise you finished, to be honest. I was like, oh, it's me. But that's just been so quiet. And even this week, you're kind of making calls and asking people, and it's just nothing. Heard anything about United? No, nothing. And it's it's very, very unusual. And I'm kind of thinking towards the end of the window now, and we often do a wrap piece for the end of the window, and it's you almost just wrap it by saying nothing happened. The most interesting thing that's happened in United's window happened before January with Antoine Semenyo. And since then, nothing's really happened. And it's they've been offered Wilfred and Ndidi. Come on, seriously. Ugarte's better player than Wilfred and Ndidi.
There's a job for Ndidi in Europe.
Yeah,
it's not in England. It's not United.
That's almost people who just want to do transfers for transfer's sake. I don't think they need Wilfred and Ndidi on loan when after this weekend they're going to have 15 games left. It's just unnecessary. So you can see why it's going to be a quiet window. I think as things stand, the only kind of point of interest, and it's debatable how interested people will be, is probably Tyrone Marshall and what's going to happen there and whether he'll go.
Sorry, did you say interest in that?
Well, exactly. Yeah. But he's out of contract in the summer anyway, so everyone knows he's going. It's more just, will they let him go early? Will anyone pay?
Was it Cadiz in the summer? I can't remember which Spanish club it was. To be fair, you obviously didn't say, but I should know that. Obviously, he was close to leaving in the summer. Yeah. But, he's the last kind of remaining member of the bomb squad who's still around it.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
It is time to go. And he wants to go. He wants to go now. I've been told there's interest from Italy, Spain and Turkey in him. He's played 2 minutes. He's been on the bench for 13 of the last 15 games and played 2 minutes against Newcastle, where the next subs off the rank were me and you. It's pretty clear there's no future for him. Mazraoui's back now, so he's probably not even going to be needed on the bench.
It must be hard to put yourself in a player's shoes. I know it's difficult for us and fans because they're very well paid for their troubles, but you do want to get out and you do want to play. And mentally, it's tough as well. Yeah, he's missed a lot of time with injuries.
Well, I was going to say, he missed 550 days between first team appearances. Then he had that spell at PSV, which, didn't really work, didn't really play that much. Then he comes back to United. He's stuck in this bomb squad, which I thought was a bit harsh, really.
Yeah, but it was by association, wasn't it? Not off his own behaviour or anything.
Yeah, and the players he's associated with kind of felt like they were being forced out for different reasons than just the football. And I wasn't sure he deserved to kind of be in that category. When, from what we hear, he's not really done anything wrong, apart from not being good enough and getting some unfortunate injuries. So, he probably deserves to go. And like I say, if Mazraoui's back, he's not even in the squad. But if we're sat here, 10 days, 9 days till the end of the window, and we've just devoted 3 or 4 minutes to talking about Tyrone Marshall's future.
It sounded like there was a helicopter landing on the roof there, so it's telling us to move on.
Maybe it's a big MEN transfer.
Yeah, there's obviously some outgoings in terms of loans. Harry Amas is particularly interesting. Spent the first half of the campaign with Sheffield Wednesday, did very well, but United were covering the costs of his loan, which is why that's opened the door for another club to sign him in the second half of the campaign. If you were wondering, he's going at Norwich. Toby Collier, obviously familiar, first team involvement. We'll give him a mention before. He's joining Hull. That should go through this weekend. I was told last weekend the manager came out and said, "Yep, he's having his medical."
Yeah.
I sent a message. Was it absolutely not true? He's not having his medical. So I think Hull fans were a bit surprised to see that on social media. So some loan outgoings, but that's just as interesting as it gets. And it's not very interesting at the moment, is it? Unfortunately,
no, it's not.
Yeah. We'll leave it there for part 1 then. We'll be back in a moment for part 2.
Bring your digital life to a whole new level with NordVPN. Choose the fastest VPN on the planet and explore the internet without interruption.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Manchester's Red podcast. Now, it is Arsenal this weekend. Set Piece FC.
Yes.
Top of the Premier League for me would be, I think for a lot of people, would probably be the worst Premier League winners in a long time, this Arsenal team. They seem to be the best of a bad bunch and perhaps they'll win it by default. Perhaps City will get their act together, we'll see. But it's going to be a tough game for United. It always is down at the Emirates. And Arsenal's physicality, I know we joke about it and fans joke about it, but they're very good at what they do.
They are.
But Carrick made the perfect start. Fantastic victory on Saturday. I think the message after that from everyone within the club, wasn't it? Like, let's not get carried away. It's just one game. And I think that was his message after the match in the dressing room. But it should give confidence for this weekend, because what a start and what a place to start and to open up your tenure. And then you're looking ahead this game and you're suddenly thinking, with Arsenal playing on Tuesday, it is winnable.
Yeah, it feels like
every game's winnable.
Every game's winnable. Yeah, I know. I'd be surprised if they won it, but it feels like a free hit, doesn't it? With what happened on Saturday, the fact that the one thing with Arsenal is you wouldn't expect them to go out and thrash United 3 or 4-0. Like you could have maybe seen that with City at their best. You don't really see it with Arsenal because they just don't do that, and like they should be so much better than some of their parts. Arsenal should be 15 points clear in this title race now. Like you say, they've got the best, the deepest squad in the league, but they put it to so little use. And the Champions League game sums it up. That was physicality. Like, they are so much stronger and fitter than Inter Milan, and they just bullied them. In the Premier League, the physicality, they're more physical than teams, but the gap with Inter Milan is that. The gap with Premier League teams is that, which is great on a podcast, but you can probably work it out.
Ty was moving his hands.
And like, it's not that big, and they kind of grind it out. They score goals by set pieces. The Forest game I didn't see that, but didn't sound like they were brilliant. I watched the Liverpool game a few weeks ago. I might have mentioned it on Monday. And you watch that, and I think City had just drawn their 3rd game in a row. And I was like, Arsenal are going to win this 3 or 4-0. Liverpool have been pretty poor. This is kind of the night. This is one of those nights you look back on at the end of the season and you go, that was when they won the league. Like, that was when they just went, right, bang, it's done. And they were just so like negative, so dour. And I think that's the frustration with them. Like, I hesitate to say they'd be bad champions, but they'd be boring champions.
I think they'd be pretty bad champions.
They'd be boring champions.
Having said that, I mean, they've been around it and been second for a couple of seasons now. So on that, you could kind of say it was deserved. Yeah, they've been knocking on the door.
I think they probably will deserve it, but I would say they're boring champions more than bad champions. If they do get over the line, I mean, there's a scenario where United do beat them, City win at Wolves, and it's 4 points, and Arsenal still got to go to the Etihad. So, there's a long way to go yet, but not this weekend. But you just want to see more from Arsenal. Like, you look at them and you watch them sometimes, and it's like, give me more. There must be more here. But which is why I think you feel for United that they'll go down and they'll be in the game for a long, long time on Saturday. Even if Arsenal take the lead, you don't feel like Arsenal are going to go and score 2 or 3 or 4 and really run riot. Like, you feel like United will be in that game for a long, long time.
Depends how many corners they get.
Well, that's always the risk.
Bloody ruthless from those corners. Yeah. In terms of team selection, I think you said you'd kind of want Sesko on the bench. I could see the logic in that. I'd just keep the same team. It was such a good performance. And that obviously means Patrick Dorgu keeps his place on the wing. And I thought it was worth talking about him because there was so much to go at on the last podcast after the derby. I don't think we actually discussed Dorgu. So I thought I'd write a piece for the morning the next day after. And I think he definitely has improved over the last 3 weeks. And considering the criticism that he received from Amram at the end of November, it was my question in the press conference. And I think Amram had said he called United really soft, right, early in that press conference. And obviously, naturally, that would be the standout line, wouldn't it? And then he comes out and absolutely knifes Dorgu, which was good, like an innocuous question, a completely normal question. Dorgu was actually milling about on the second floor, and I couldn't help but notice when I left, I thought he's just completely unaware here. Yards away, his manager has gone for him, poor lad. But he's responded. Yeah. He has. Obviously, kind of stumbled on playing him in that position, I guess. He played on the wing against Newcastle on Boxing Day, scored a brilliant volley, and was back to the left wing back position against Villa, assisted Kuna, another brilliant performance against City and a goal. He does look like a confidence player, and that's very understandable when you're that young. And I think his age has sometimes been forgotten because he's 21 years old. He's come from Lecce, Have you ever watched a Lecce game?
Nope.
No, it's a tiny club in Italy, completely different. He came into a struggling dressing room, a really bad first 6 months, and that wasn't his fault. 15th place in the Premier League, but now he's starting to settle and find his feet. And fair play to him, because he has improved clearly over the last few weeks and shown something, hasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah, and he's done it by being moved about constantly as well. I mean, he came back into the team against Villa just before Christmas and played left wing back. Then he played right wing on Boxing Day. Then I think he moved to left wing back again. Or was it? Did he play
right
number 10?
Wasn't he?
He played number 10 against Newcastle. Played number 10 against Newcastle.
Who's he right back against?
He played right wing against someone
right back
recently. I think it was right wing.
He has obviously played right wing, but
and then he played left wing at the weekend. Like, he must have played, left wing back, right wing, number 10, left wing, at least 4 positions in a month. And he's played in all of them really, really well. So, fair play to him. He has really kicked on. I mean, I spoke to someone close to him a few weeks ago, and they said that he was unfazed by Amorim's criticism, and that, like, one of his great strengths is that he's just kind of like almost oblivious to these sort of things. Like, he doesn't look at that and take it as criticism. It doesn't affect him. Which in a way,
I can see that when you speak to him. Obviously, I had 20 minutes with him in August, and then he spoke after Newcastle, and his kind of demeanour, it almost
like
looks as he's just not that fussed, is he? Yeah, scored a goal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the manager criticised me. It's never nice, but it's all right. That's what he was kind of like.
Well, that was the impression I got. That really, like, that's those sort of comments, and especially the way they're phrased, like the way it was said. It wasn't like Amorim saying, "Yeah, I regret signing him. He's rubbish." It was like everyone's anxious when he gets the ball, and that could easily make a 21-year-old more anxious, but. In a way, it's fortunate that the person it was aimed at is kind of laid back enough to kind of just shrug it off and not take it. Maybe not take it seriously. He's not the right way of putting it, but he's not overly affected by it. It's not killed him for 6 months. Like, he's dropped out of the team soon after it, but he's just kind of like I guess doubled down, worked a bit hard. I'm not even sure he necessarily worked a bit harder, because I don't think he was not working hard before. He's just kind of like got such a faith in his abilities that he feels that it was going to come good for him eventually.
AFCON's helped, hasn't it? Because he looked at that and he probably would have thought, well, yeah, I've just lost my place in the team here. I mean, managers just criticised us, but I've got an opportunity here when players go to AFCON, and he's taken it with both hands. Yeah,
definitely, it really has. Yeah, he's been fantastic recently. I mean, I was stunned to see him in the team on Saturday and in the team on the left wing.
Over Matthias Cunha. It's a big call.
Yeah, it's a big call. And essentially over Sesko as well, in that attack. And you looked at it and you're like, there's 3. Ahmad, Dorgu and Mbuemo. If you asked them where they want to play, all of them would have said right wing in that attack. You've basically picked 3 right wingers, but he was really good again. And yeah, I think I think you probably do want to keep him in the team at the moment. And it'd be interesting to see kind of how his game develops from here.
I'd start Harry Maguire as well. I thought he was excellent, wasn't he, in the derby? And his aerial presence is going to be particularly important. He's so good in those aerial duels. And we know, as we've said, how good Arsenal are from corners. So Maguire is going to be really key. And then that kind of brings us on to the discussion about his contract, because he's in a similar boat as Casemiro, although there was a slight difference with Casemiro because there was the option to extend. The option to extend Maguire's contract was triggered last year. So out and outright, his contract extends in June. I was in favour, and people could say it's British bias or English bias, but I was in favour of extending Maguire's contract and allowing Casemiro to leave. I think his skill set was a bit more specific and niche in that squad. He's on less money, and he's a year younger as well. So there's a few different boxes there that are being ticked for me for Maguire. Which camp are you in, Ty? I think it makes a lot of sense to keep him. You even said after the derby, you think on his day he's still the best defender.
Yeah, I think he probably is, to be honest. I think he's certainly, him. You look at it in the moment, him, Martinez and De Ligt would be the 3 you're picking from, aren't they? Like, Yoro's had a difficult season. He's definitely going to come again. Heaven's time is going to come. Martinez and De Ligt are both mid to late 20s. Maguire's kind of the older one of the, what have we mentioned, 5 centre-backs there. But I think I would definitely keep him, especially if they're in Europe next year. There's probably no great rush on it. I mean, I don't see him going abroad, to be honest. I think that's probably unlikely. There's been no suggestion that there's kind of interest from overseas. the only clubs that can pay the kind of, mentioned on less than Casemiro, but only just less, I would, it's not like he's on 50 grand, 100 grand a week.
In a weird world, I could see him rocking up like Bayern Munich or something like that. They signed Eric Dyer, didn't they? It did. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's that kind of transfer that I wouldn't rule out completely.
Yeah.
Like out of any of the top clubs in Europe, who would sign him? It would probably be a Bayern.
It probably would. But I mean, he can speak to clubs in Europe from January the 1st, but you don't get the impression that he's not a long-term plan. There's maybe 5 clubs in Europe who could afford him on those on the probably wages on at United. And it's not like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich are thinking in their long-term plans, let's sign Harry Maguire, are they? Maybe it gets to June and he's leaving and it does become a short-term option for someone. But I would be in favour of keeping him. Obviously, there's a balancing act here in that ideally you want to extend his contract by a year and probably reduce his wages slightly. But now, obviously, he's not going to jump at that option. He's probably going to want 2 years.
2 years is the compromise.
Yeah, and then you're taking it to the point where he's 34, and then it's like, well, how do you, if in the second year he's suddenly not playing at all, have you got a 200 grand a week defender who's a bit of a millstone? So it is difficult at this stage, I think, with players and what they do. But I would definitely be in favour of keeping him. I think, and you're losing Casemiro. There is kind of an experience vacuum there. Maguire, lots of people at United say Maguire has become a better leader without the captaincy than he was with the captaincy. Like, I think he's stepped up more without having the armband. Like, weirdly, I think it just suits him better not having it, not being captain.
I think he was still doing all the leadership things and still being brilliant around the place. The difference is his form, but it was probably affecting having that pressure and responsibility.
His form's
probably
made a bit of a difference,
wasn't it?
Yeah. But I don't know, I've always got the impression, and I'm sure he would say he would love to be captain, but I've always got the impression he's a bit more comfortable with the leadership without the captaincy. But with Casemiro going, we can't. We cannot say for certain Fernandes will be here next season. Like I say, I think it is, maybe 60-40, 70-30 will at the moment. But like I say, it's impossible to call, I think. And if suddenly Fernandes goes in the summer and Maguire goes, there's a huge vacuum of experience and senior leadership there. So I would try and keep him. But I can understand why it's a difficult deal to do with a centre back who's 32. But yeah, I would definitely be in favour of keeping him.
No changes. It's a pretty boring discussion, isn't it? I suppose if we're just saying pick the same team.
Pick the same team. Yeah. Keep the same players. Give them all new contracts. Job done.
Be all right.
Easy this lot.
Do you plan tomorrow? Because you got tomorrow off, I presume.
I have. Yeah. Nothing major planned, to be honest. Bit of junior football in the morning. Watched my 6-year-old. They won 11-1 last week.
11-1?
11-1. I couldn't go.
Impressive performance.
Unfortunately, we've been at City, but yeah, I was told they won 11-1.
Fair play.
So
did he score?
He didn't score. No. He's a.
Sorry, I take away my fair play there. Actually.
Well, he's a goalkeeper, you see, like I was. Well, it's family business. Family business being goalkeeper. You all know from those games at Old Trafford that I am an established number one.
You were brought off at half time, I think.
Yeah, well, I think everyone
controversially to be fair.
I think everyone agrees that was a mistake.
Controversial.
But yeah, so he's a goalkeeper who, like most 6-year-olds, cannot do 40 minutes in goal because he gets.
Who was it who went in there again? I can't remember. I see his face every week. He's from an overseas broadcaster, isn't he?
Yeah.
If he's listening to this, and we'll see him again in May when we do play the media game, you were bloody terrible. He was absolutely
Well, I kept a clean sheet in my 45 minutes, didn't I?
I think, if we're harping back.
And the apple's not fallen far from the tree, that's all I'm saying.
I was very happy with my performance. I did 3 peaks and rocked up a few hours later and
did that. Yeah, you did. Yeah, fair play to you.
Walking gingerly that morning.
Yeah. Well, it was floated yesterday, wasn't it? That maybe Casemiro or fancy a run out in the media game. So
could do with those, I was going to say those legs, but even Casemiro's lack of legs is still more than we've got.
Well, if he does, hopefully the football has left him by then.
Yeah, perhaps. Cheltenham for me tomorrow, Ty. Long day, getting up really early, coming back really late, and then
straight to
might go into Leeds to get the train down to the Emirates. So it's a long weekend.
I won't be
Youth Cup tonight. It's a long weekend.
I'll let you.
Oh yeah, you just got to sleep. I'll be hungover, I imagine.
Should be stinking of Carlsberg as well.
Ever the professional. Right, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game. We'll be back on Monday to review the performance. Take care.